Yesterday I tested positive, which shows that the virus can really affect anybody, because I was very well protected. I was careful. I respected all the social distancing rules. I wore a mask. I regularly used hand sanitizer. And despite everything, I caught the virus. Without doubt, it was a moment of negligence or bad luck.
Yeah, there's a little bit of controversy, I should say, Catherine, because, well, first of all, it's been very difficult to contact trace a 42-year-old workaholic head of state, as we've discovered. And Macron sure did have a full agenda, in particular, lots of scrutiny over that handshake on Monday between the president and OECD Secretary General Angel Gurria at a summit that included Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you just look back at the last week of Emmanuel Macron's calendar, it was really very heavy on in-person meetings. You think about it, Thursday and Friday of last week, he was in Brussels with all the other 27 heads of state or government of the EU. Then on Monday, he was very busy at the Rugby World Cup draw. He then went on to the OECD. Then on Tuesday, had meetings. I mean, one really does have to ask the question of, did someone drop the ball? Because there were a lot of in-person meetings, which was so much, so different from the very constrained meetings we've seen Emmanuel Macron having. And let's not forget, right at the start, he was the man who started doing the Namaste greeting when the virus first hit and when the pandemic was here in the spring. So I think someone possibly dropped the ball and allowed too many in-person meetings there.
Right, and again, that handshake that we saw on Monday. Now, the French health minister, himself a doctor, insists Macron's always careful and quick to point the finger at that summit in Brussels.
Le chef de l'État, en l'occurrence, n'a pas été manifestement contaminé au cours d'un déjeuner ou d'un dîner à l'Élysée, mais vraisemblablement, d'après ce qu'on entend, en tout cas possiblement lors d'un Conseil européen il y a quelques jours, 4 ou 5 jours à Bruxelles, avec des chefs d'État, un dîner de travail, je crois, qui avait été organisé dans une grande pièce espacée. Malheureusement, on n'est pas à l'abri d'une contamination.
All right, let's put this to epidemiologist Dave Clark. Dave, by the way, Véran is a neurologist. He's not a virologist. Now we've learned that the Slovakian prime minister has tested positive. Is that proof?
Well, it's a correlation. I don't know if it's a causation. There were a lot of questions here in Brussels this week about exactly when Emmanuel Macron first got infected, because it makes a lot of difference across the continent. I was going to say that 27 European leaders were in that room with him on that day, but in fact it was only 26 because Jüri Ratas of Estonia did not make it because he was already self-isolating. And as you say, Ivan Matovic of Slovakia has since tested positive, and he was in that room with Macron. Now, we don't know whether they had any close contact. Obviously, it's a large conference room to have that many heads of state in it. But they did meet beforehand. That was all seen on camera. People were bumping elbows and laughing and joking. It wasn't just the 27 as well. There were European officials there. Now, Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, has taken a test, says he's negative, but is isolating anyway per the guidelines. But Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, says she doesn't feel she has to take a test. And both of those people did meet Macron in Paris this week on Sunday and Monday, because they were there along with Pedro Sanchez at the OECD meeting.
Yeah, and Portugal's prime minister had to cancel a 3-day tour of Africa.
Yes, there's a lot of concern in Brussels, obviously, because the whole continent's leadership could be affected by this eventually, at least in terms of self-isolation. Or hopefully there won't be too many more cases, although obviously that's already quite a high percentage with just 2. Now, there have been quite a few summits this year that have been conducted virtually because of the COVID crisis, but the leaders felt that they couldn't get their most important agenda items decided during the summits virtually, because people won't speak frankly when they're on video, as we are now. We don't know how many millions of people are watching France 24 right now, and some of them may be screen grabbing what I'm saying. If this was a private summit, it might not stay private for long.
All right, the night before falling ill, French president hosts a working dinner for 9 leaders of his coalition, including the prime minister and the speaker of the National Assembly, to prepare for upcoming regional elections. Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, will that do lasting damage, that dinner?
Yes, this part of the episode will have lasting damage, because it's like, we forbid you to go to a restaurant, we forbid you to be more than 6 at your Christmas table, but I, president, can do it, and I can do it whenever I want, with how many people I want, as much people as I want, and we don't really we care, because we've been like caught in the action, and I'm sick because of that, but. It's business as usual for me. And that's not something that French people can really accept, because in France, we are really keen on being equals. And this kind of thing is not really good for its popularity. But the social media part he did today was quite good on the other hand. And he kind of admitted that he had a bad behavior, which is kind of new. He doesn't recognize his own faults most of the time, but this time, yes. So maybe it's the beginning of wisdom raising inside the minds of our political class. And maybe they start to understand that, yes, you can be contaminated if you have dinner or lunch in a enclosed space. And even if you are at 3 meters of your most immediate neighbor, it's like non-important, because you are in the closed space. And if you're in a closed space, you will get contaminated anyway. So maybe they will start to understand that. It's time, after 9 months into this contagion business, it's time that they understand that point. Okay,
so there'll be a positive effect in that this will serve as a cautionary tale for everyone, Gregory Viscusi, that it's not great when you have a family gathering of lots of people. Just a reminder of the rules, it's the government wants it to be 6 adults maximum on Christmas Eve, because in France it's Christmas Eve, the big night when you have the dinner. Do you agree with Philippe that this could maybe do lasting damage to Macron?
I think it will definitely do lasting damage, even though it probably is not at that dinner that he was infected. If you just look at the timeline, it's unlikely. It's too short a time. And we should point out that a table that they sit at the Élysée is probably the size of most Paris apartment buildings. But still, I think the timing is terrible from a PR point of view for Macron, coming right before Christmas, right before the biggest family gathering of the year in France, when people are being told to limit to 6, and we find out that a dinner that was not on his schedule. So we wouldn't even have known about this dinner if he hadn't gotten sick. It wasn't not on his official schedule. Probably wouldn't have known about it if he hadn't gotten sick. He goes ahead and has 10 people at his table. So no, I think that it's terrible. It's a terrible optic for him.
Yeah, and by the way, that dinner. Throwing the spotlight on what goes on in the high halls of power after hours. There was this tweet, were the women in the kitchen? It was put out by left-wing Euro MP Aurore Laluc. Catherine Field, your reaction to that, the fact that here you have these, 10 people around the table, not a single woman.
Yeah, all white men.
Yeah, well, the photo speaks for itself, doesn't it? And when you look at other comparable nations in Europe, who have not only got heads of political parties, but also the heads of government, heads of state, females. Yeah, I mean, that particular tweet, that photo really did show up just how much ground French female politicians have got to make up.
Do you see a change coming, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, between now and the campaign for the next presidential elections?
Oh, there will be many, many changes. For instance, if this vaccination campaign doesn't work as it should, I think the backlash will be absolutely devastating for anyone who will be there in charge. And there is a good chance that we don't really handle that well. And I think we will have a big surprise in the next election, presidential election. It's unlikely that we have we know everything yet. There will be a lot of shocks, and we expect 1 million unemployed more, and we expect a lot of troubles. And really, the vaccination business, it's really the most important thing. If we are able to be efficient, quick, and to the point with this campaign, then maybe we will be out of this quite quickly, and we'll be campaigning for 1 year in a kind of more calm, more relaxed mode. But if it goes bad, the hell will happen. I don't know what will happen.
All right, right now it is a winter of discontent. The latest country to return to lockdown